I'm a bit obsessed with V10 engines. I grew up with them dominating in Formula 1, and I'm even putting one in my Mark II Mazda MX-5 because why the hell not? But there's one V10 car that we never really got in the UK, one that seems more muscle car than the exotic thoroughbred V10s that we had in Europe. It's the one that started it all, the Dodge Viper. The closest I've ever come to driving one of these is on Gran Turismo 1. I'd always go for the inverse colours, blue with the white stripe. But just look at this thing. In my opinion, it's America's first proper supercar. The Ford GT may have come along in the early 2000s and taken its crown, but for me, this is the one. I say supercar, this 1996 RT10 has attributes that are more muscle car than exotic. The rearward cabin with that huge bonnet stretched out in front, a manual gearbox, and then of course the largest capacity road car engine in the world when it ceased production. This engine is 8 litres, but that would stretch to 8.4 litres by the end of the Viper's journey. I always wondered though, being an American performance car, why did they go for a V10 instead of a V8? Well, they clearly wanted something a bit more exotic for the Viper, but they had to start somewhere within the parts bin, so they took the 5.9 litre Magnum V8, yup, a pickup truck engine, added 2 cylinders to it, and did some stroking with some help from Lamborghini to end up with the 8 litre engine we've got here today. Before I drive the car, I'd like to introduce the sponsor of today's video. Without sponsors, we would not be able to come to places like North America, and the channel simply would not exist. So I'd like to thank Policygenius for sponsoring this video. If I had an RT10 in North America, my main struggle would be getting something this cool insured. Policygenius makes it super easy to compare car and home insurance all in the one place, making sure you're getting the best value for your money. They've saved new customers an average of $435 on their car insurance, a serious chunk of cash. And I say dollars because Policygenius is US only. The Policygenius team will make it super easy to switch over, so head over to policygenius.com/drivetribe or click the link in the description below to get started. If the Policygenius team can find you a cheaper policy, they'll switch you over completely for free. I'm not sure how much it is to insure an 8 litre V10 supercar as rare as this, but it'll be worth it, right? It only creates 420 horsepower from that displacement, but from what I hear about this car's reputation, that is plenty. The engine creates so much torque from the displacement and the stroke that it's very easy to kick out the rear end. And once it's gone, those big rear tyres are inevitably going to grip back up at some point and spit you back the other way, either into oncoming traffic or deep into the nearest swamp. So, the way I'm going to drive this Viper today is to let it do its thing through the corners, and then once you're dead straight, let that V10 take over. Five-year-old me on Gran Turismo is freaking out right now. It makes such a distinctive sound. You could be forgiven for thinking it sounds like a V8 when it's low down in the revs, but once you pick it up and it comes on cam, you can definitely tell there's 2 other cylinders firing. I will admit though, I am coming up against a problem that actually the trio came up against when they were driving their supercars in America. The speed limits around here are crazy. This is what in Britain we would call a normal country road, and the speed limit on here is 50 kilometers an hour. not miles an hour, 50 kilometers an hour. How are you supposed to have any sort of fun in a car like this, on a road like this? I mean, I am. Even at slow speed, this thing is fantastic. And my 0 to 50s are incredibly impressive, but it's a bit of a shame. We need to get one of these in the UK. It gets its guttural soundtrack from its V8 origins. Believe it or not, this is a pushrod V10. That's incredibly old school tech, even for the 90s. So what that means is 2 valves per cylinder, inlet and exhaust. They are operated via rods that are then operated by a central camshaft that's deep within the engine. Now that, combined with the displacement of this engine, means that it doesn't really rev that high and the emissions are not the best. But Dodge did come up with a clever way to make an 8-litre engine viable in terms of emissions. They came up with something called a dual camshaft. Now, this car doesn't have it because emissions back in the 90s. This is a 1996 RT. But the later Vipers had this clever camshaft that was essentially 2 camshafts in one. There was one cam profile for low speed, low revving city driving, a bit cleaner, and then a performance profile for when you want to get maximum horsepower and get a move on. Now this car just has those performance lobes because America. It was Dodge's decision to go V10 that really sparked the golden era of that engine layout in road cars. The Gallardo, R8, Carrera GT and LFA all followed after the Viper and the other vehicles that Dodge slotted this engine into. Yes, there was the odd commercial vehicle that used a V10 diesel before it, and the odd concept car that never went anywhere that had a V10. But in terms of production cars, the Dodge Viper RT10 was the genesis of it all. I will admit, I came into this thinking that the car was going to feel pretty agricultural, but I was totally wrong. Once you're up on cam, that V10, it feels fantastic. And you know what? The car handles. I thought it would handle like an old school American muscle car, but it just doesn't. And maybe I was silly to think that because they took this thing racing and it did incredibly well. One of the most successful American racing cars of all time. I think why this car's got under my skin so much is because it's from that perfect period in the 90s where cars were simple, but they still had some level of technological advancement. But the recipe here is a big, naturally aspirated engine, a manual gearbox that's only got 6 speeds, not the 10-speed ridiculous things you get today. Rear-wheel drive? What more do you need? One thing I do need to clear up is the badge. RT10. I thought that was going to be road and track 10-cylinder, and I think a lot of people think that's the case. But actually, it is rapid transport 10-cylinder. That's way cooler. In 2021, we're down to the last 2 stalwarts of the V10 engine, the Lamborghini Huracan and the Audi R8. Everyone else has fallen by the wayside to emissions regulations and a culture change towards electrification. But it is an engine layout that has propelled many of the greatest cars of all time, and it was the performance engineering guys and girls at Dodge and Lamborghini that brought the first V10 to the road. So Sam, you're the dealer principal here at Wellington Motors and you're the owner of this car. Firstly, thank you so much for letting me drive it. My main question is, with all the sort of generic American performance cars around, pretty much all with V8, why did you go Viper?
Well, obviously the first reason is I'm a Dodge dealer.
Yeah.
But, you know, being a car guy myself, I mean, I came up from the back shop as a technician. I got the opportunity to drive one day that was in for service, and I mean, they were a monster, right? The car's so torquey.
Yeah.
And I fell in love immediately with the car, and just had to have 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4.
Okay.
So
you do have this, and then there's a GTS just around the corner,
yep,
which is stunning.
Yep.
Are you looking to add to that garage?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what's next? Has to be an ACR.
Well, that'll be the end game.
Okay.
Those ones they're crazy money right now. The market on those has really taken off.
Yeah.
Probably next will be a Gen 3. I've got a Gen 1, Gen 2.
Okay.
So Gen 3 would be the next one. I'd like to get a copperhead, a convertible if possible. But the rare cars, right, they're hard to find. That was very specific and wanting a white with blue stripe. So.
And we don't really get these in the UK, so what is it like to own a Dodge Viper in North America?
Well, even here, you know, there's probably more in the States than there is in Canada, but anywhere you go in these things, you know, you're recognized. I mean, I've had anywhere restaurants and kids will come out and they ask if they can get their picture in the car.
Sure.
So, I mean, you gotta love attention, right? It has to be part of the game. They're lots of fun to drive, you know. Most of us that have them are not crazy. We go to the track if we want to drive them hard because the car, you know, it's dangerous if you don't know what you're doing, so.
Well, Sam, I have lived a dream today, so thank you so much.
You're welcome, man. My pleasure.
I've ticked a car off my bucket list today. I truly never thought I'd ever get to drive a Viper. Now, we are in North America for another really cool project, which you guys will get to see very soon. But I thought, while we're here, why would we be doing all the touristy stuff when cars like this exist here? So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I've been Mike, and don't forget to subscribe to Drive Tribe.